And we're live with another SEO leadership webinar. Today we have Sophie Brannon, the Director of SEO at RushOrderTees. How are we today, Sophie?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you so much, Jay. Thank you for having me on.
Not a problem at all. Before we call, Sophie did say she was a Chelsea supporter, so we're going to have to go hard on her today on the
Pure
podcast.
abuse now, that's it.
But yeah, Sophie, we're just going to jump straight into it. So I love asking this question, just it reaches quite a lot of our audience. So see, when you first progressed into a leadership role, did you naturally know that you were going to be a leader? Or was it just oh, I'll take a sleep and learn as I go? Or did you have sort of a bit of leadership qualities about yourself? How did you know that it was the right time and what to do as soon as you jumped up into that leadership role?
I would definitely say it wasn't something I saw myself doing at first. To be honest, SEO as a whole wasn't something I saw myself doing. I was quite happy being a content writer, and just keeping myself to myself in the agency and things like that, just doing the content side of things. I got moved over to, well, didn't get pushed into it, but I got the opportunity to become an SEO account manager, and decided for the benefit of my career that would make sense. I'll go and do that. And then from there, it was more, I just started building processes. I started looking at opportunities of how to improve things, how to make things better, supported the team around me just where I was developing myself, and wanted to also help other people as well. And I think that naturally then just progressed into a leadership position.
Perfect. And as you were saying about helping other people, there is a fine line between obviously helping and micromanagement. Is there anything you put in place to ensure that you would never micromanage? It was always just helping in order to aid people and move everyone forward.
Yeah, so this is actually something I found really difficult. I think where my experiences have come from in the past, there was a lot of very specific project management tools that we had to time track on and things like that, which is really important for like making sure we're keeping an eye on how much clients are charging versus like how much time we're actually spending on them and making sure that's profitable for the business and things like that. So I found over time that I was a better task manager than what I was a people manager because of that.
Okay.
And I found it actually quite difficult to let go of like, guys, what are you on? Like, what are you doing today? Like, give me an update on this. Where are you at with this task? Especially because I've worked fully remotely since the start of COVID, and that's where a lot of my leadership roles have like I've been doing them all remotely. So it took a long time for me to actually have that element of trust and to be able to just let things go a little bit more. And that was a big jump, like personally for me, to be like, okay, just let it go. Like keep an eye on things, like make sure people are okay, check in, but don't like harass people as
Yeah.
such. And to be like, dude, guys, what's going on? Where is this at? Where is this at? Because the chances are they're actually just working on it in the background. Like I don't need to know every 5 minutes what someone's up to. It's if anything, you're putting them under more stress and pressure and more admin time that they're not actually doing the work with, like, you know what I
Exactly.
mean? So
Yeah, taking away from productivity. Thank you very much for that.
exactly, yeah.
And so if we just to build off on that, on the sort of the people management side of things, obviously at Absolute Digital, you were sort of senior SEO manager, then up to head of SEO, then up to client services director. As you sort of progress across those different levels, how did you sort of adapt your management style from maybe managing slightly more junior people to managing a lot more senior people?
I think again it's that element of trust. I think when you are managing junior people, you do have to spend a lot more time doing training. You have to spend a lot more time kind of QAing a lot of work, which naturally you would, because people are going to make mistakes. They're learning as well, and you want to make sure you're still delivering the best quality product for the client, no matter what level of client you've got, and no matter who's working on that. When you start managing more senior level people, I think the most important thing that I learned was just to give people space, just to let them do what they need to do. They are experts at what they do, whether it's a SEO manager, whether it's a PPC manager, no matter what they're working in. They are the experts in that. And when they're at a senior level, they're at that senior level for a reason, right? Because they're good at what they do. They've worked their way up to it. They've got years of experience. They've worked with different clients. You just have to give them that space and that mentality to be like, okay, cool. I'm here if you need me, if you've got any questions, like if you need any support, you need any training, if I can help you with managing a particular client or a particular scenario that maybe you haven't faced before, or you just need that reassurance. And I think at a senior level, that typically is what people need more. It's they're coming to you with a question or they're coming to you with a problem that they actually need reassurance on rather than training. So just giving them that open opportunity and being there to be that level of support for them, as opposed to the micromanagement, task management side.
Excellent. And then just to sort of follow up on that, you mentioned as well, you've sort of brought on somebody at RushOrderTees. What was the sort of the thinking behind that hire? Was it bring on somebody with experience that can sort of hit the ground running straight away, or did you bring on somebody maybe a bit more junior who you can take under your wing and sort of train up the way you sort of see fit?
So at RushOrderTees, it was much more of an experience thing. So the SEO team is pretty new. We wanted to start building it out a bit more. My boss is the director of e-commerce. So really, I'm the director of SEO, and we've got the SEO manager in now as well. So it's just building out that team. So we wanted someone with experience in a particular side of the business that we're branching out into. So that would make sense for business longevity. But when it came to the agency side of things, I see a lot of value in training people up and training from the ground up. I found in the past that when you're hiring people with experience, they tend to have their own way of doing things. And in an agency environment, like, you have your own set processes and you've got your own ways of doing things, which is absolutely fine. There may be ways to improve that, and there's always ways to improve those efficiencies and things like that.
Yeah.
But when you've got people coming in more at a senior level that are quite stuck in their ways, and they may potentially not want to evolve, and they may not want to adapt, that then causes a bit of friction within teams, and it can cause like problems in the long term. I'm not saying that's something you can't get around, because as I said, there's always ways to improve processes and ways to do things, and there's always ways to learn from other people. And any agency or any company should never just be stuck in one way. You should always be adaptable, particularly in the SEO industry where it just changes constantly. But training people from the ground up means that you get to nurture them, teach them everything you know, you get to watch them flourish in their career, help them along the way, give them advice and guidance. And I think that's generally, for me, a much more kind of enriching experience when I am managing.
Excellent.
On the topic of bringing on team members and training them up, do you provide us with one example, one aspect that you consider vital when onboarding a team member and a senior team member?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think communication is always the big thing. And I think this is something that a lot of SEOs actually struggle with. And I was having this conversation with the OMG Centre Slack, actually, with Vicky Simmons in there. And I was having a bit of a chat with her. And generally speaking, like, communication as a whole is a soft skill. And a lot of SEOs are quite technical people, they're quite analytical people, and they're not always that great at that communication aspect. And a lot of people are, especially agency side, and I see this a lot more now than what it used to be, where you are both an SEO and an account manager. You deal with clients directly. And I think personally that's a great thing. That's how I've always developed. That's like working at Absolute, like they are both the SEO manager and the account manager. But for some people, like, that's not ideal, and people can't communicate well with clients. It doesn't mean that they're bad at their job. They just can't show how good they are at their job because they just don't have those soft skills. So when I'm onboarding someone, I really try and identify where those weaknesses are, first of all, where those strengths are, but also where those things are that we can factor in training, where we can look at opportunities to just help them grow and help them develop. Are they comfortable with talking to clients, putting together reports, talking to clients on the phone, doing emails, like just more of the soft skill side of things? Are they good at that? Are they not good at that? And then on the other hand, like, where are their strengths? How can we leverage those strengths within the wider team, and then use other people's strengths to counteract anyone else's weaknesses? So it's just finding that balance. So just, when I'm doing that onboarding process with juniors, seniors, whatever that is, what is that? Like, what is your strength? What is your weakness? How can we integrate that into the team?
I love that analysis off the start, just looking at strengths and weaknesses, because obviously they can get into the team and hit the ground running with their strengths, and you know where to improve their weaknesses. And just on that topic, how would you sort of convey constructive criticism? Because it is quite a hard thing to do without trying to hurt someone's feelings, or, you know, basically focus on the weaknesses. But how as a manager with your team would you convey constructive criticism to someone?
Yeah, so this is something I struggled with quite a lot when I first came to management, because where I kind of grew up within the agency and kind of climbed up the ranks, there wasn't any real like training as such. There wasn't project management training. It was kind of just like, okay, like, here's promotion, here's your new role, responsibilities, like, run with it. And I think that's the case with a lot of people who are promoted into management positions, right? I don't think there's really any way to structure training. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never done it. But I really struggled with giving constructive criticism, because a lot of the time I would be like, I just don't understand why it's not being done, or why it's not being done properly when we've got the process, or we've got and I really had a really tough time with it. And I was like, I just don't know, I don't understand what's going on. Whereas kind of working with RushOrderTees and with my manager at the moment, and just hearing the way he gives feedback, and just understanding more of that, just giving that space and giving that opportunity to understand how you've approached it, why you've done it in this way. Because it could just be I'm looking at it with my pinhole point of view, because I've been doing the same task for 10 years or whatever it is. It could be a new task that a junior member of the team hasn't approached before, and they could be looking at it from a completely different perspective that I didn't consider. So I give them that space, and I kind of understand how they've approached things, and then I pinpoint the 3 or 4, however many key areas it is that I would have done things differently, and then we'll talk through it, rather than it being you've done this badly, or this isn't the way I would have done it, or whatever that is. It's okay, here's the task, or here's the situation. Talk to me about how you've approached it. Talk to me about like what you've looked at, what angle you've approached this from. Here's kind of some pointers that I would recommend, and here's how I've done a similar task before. Here's the reasons why I've done it like this, and let's have a back and forth discussion. So rather than it being like, oh, okay, yeah, you're just really shit at this, it's more like, let's have that back and forth and find out where things have gone wrong, if they have, or maybe I'm actually looking at it from a wrong point of view.
Perfect. So
just to build up on that, Sophie, sorry, Jay, I know you have a next question, but have you ever sort of, obviously, we all know you're a great SEO, but whenever you were sort of slightly more junior, did you ever have that sort of talk where it was like constructive criticism, and is that how you learned to take that approach, or where did you sort of build that approach from?
I think from doing it wrong more than anything, from genuinely just making mistakes throughout my management experience in the past. And what I used to try and do was, because I never felt like a very confident manager, because I didn't feel like I was a very good people manager in the first place, because I never had the training and didn't really know what I was doing to be able to do it. And I was always trying to ask for that feedback from my team. And I mean, it's kind of difficult to get feedback from people, because they probably think, oh, I'm not going to tell my manager, I don't think my manager's very good at managing, because like, you know, that's not going to go well on my next review. But I would try and just get a little bit of feedback and things like that, more than anything. But I'm learning a lot more from listening to other managers now, as such, and kind of, as I said, just making mistakes, and trying to rectify that, not handling situations in the best possible way, and then now trying to fix that and be better moving forward.
Perfect. And I suppose making mistakes is where you're going to learn the most. It goes for everything, but it's actually allowing yourself to make mistakes, opposed to just trying to be perfect the whole way through. But as you were saying there, you weren't 100% sure whenever you were becoming an SEO manager about the people management side of it. But so that obviously had a bit of imposter syndrome, I would say you probably had around those times. How did you sort of keep yourself on the direct path to ensure, you know, your team are going to listen to you, have no self-doubt, and just make sure you're combating imposter syndrome whilst moving forward? Is there any key takeaways you give to our viewers that could sort of help them going through a similar stage in their career?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think imposter syndrome is something most, if not all, people face at some point in their career. It's something that I've faced numerous occasions, particularly when doing new things. And I think that's a very normal feeling. Like, rather than being afraid to do new things or afraid of feeling uncomfortable, I actually now try and embrace that. And I think actually, if I don't feel uncomfortable, it means I'm not learning something new. I'm not doing something I've never done before. So therefore, I'm not growing. So I think that's like a mentality thing that's really important to have. Like, it's okay to be uncomfortable, and you actually just grow in confidence by experiencing those different things. But overall, like, I've actually forgotten the question.
Just sort of how to combat imposter. How to combat.
I was like going down a little route and totally forgot. So so with the imposter syndrome stuff, I actually used to read like so many resources about management styles, about different ways to approach situations. I watched a whole load of webinars, confidence stuff. I think Kirsty Hulse does some incredible stuff with confidence. Just like really just getting into that whole mindset. I think I have a book upstairs about remote leadership. And really what that helped me to understand was, again, that stepping back, and that people aren't always trying to like screw you over. And that's really obviously hard to see when you're not sitting in an office. You're just like, are people just sitting there like watching TV all day? Like, I don't know, but so really understanding the team, I think, is one thing, and how they like to work. But with the imposter syndrome side, like, embrace it and just read as much as you can, just experience new things, and gradually you will learn different things over time as well.
It sounds like quite a lot of your growth has came from sort of getting outside your mindset and looking at how other people would view a situation from multiple directions, and then being able to understand their point of view and then work together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like that collaborative aspect of it as well, and just considering other people's points of view, like, and it's the same thing with anything we do in SEO. You can look at it one way, or you can look at it 10 different ways. Like, sure, if it's broken, like, it needs to be fixed, but think of all the ways that you can fix it. So it's just having that exact same mindset with not just the work and the tasks you're doing, but with the people as well.
Completely agree. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Awesome. Being the UK Search, EU Search, and Global Search Awards judge in 2023, there is, I'm sure you may have experienced a lot of A players and A player teams through the awards, and I just wanted to explore that a little bit. How do you identify A players when building your own team, or just from your experience judging other teams, and how do you advise nurturing them in their full potentials?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And actually, for me, what I've realized after numerous hires, good and bad, across different like departments, and there's a lot of departments I've hired for in the past, personality matters a lot more than skills, because you can teach skills. You cannot teach someone to not have a like ego, like a really bad ego, or to not just be a shit person. You can't teach someone that, like, if they're that, like, most of the time they're just that. And to me, like, with SEO, like, I learned SEO from the ground up, and I am where I am today because of the things I've read and the things people have taught me. And there's no reason why anyone else couldn't be in that exact same position. You could be a junior like SEO, no experience. I was literally a copywriter with a journalism background, and now I'm a director of SEO at an e-commerce company, like, in America 10 years later. I've managed teams across SEO and agencies. I've worked with agencies, freelance, all these different kind of things. And seeing the teams that work best are the ones that actually work on a personal level, and they're genuinely decent people. Like, you can have a laugh with them. They understand that SEO isn't the be all and end all. You're not saving lives. Like, for a lot of businesses, it probably is very important because it's their revenue and it's their money at the end of the day. But it's okay to have fun as well. So just looking not just at skills, not just at experience, all of that kind of stuff. Just look for people who you think are going to be a good personal fit in your team, that is going to allow them to work together, have a good time doing it, make the culture really enjoyable, and that's an A star team without a doubt.
Awesome.
Brilliant.
And just on the sort of topic of teams, for motivational aspect, you were saying it's fully remote, and obviously fully remote teams are, I wouldn't say a trend anymore, it's just set in stone, but it is something that's creeped up out of nowhere for all industries. But how do you sort of keep motivation within a fully remote team, since you're not really in an office and like physically seeing each other? How do you keep that motivation high to ensure everyone's striving towards that same goal and sticking to the strategy?
Yeah, so I think just regular check-ins with people just to make sure they're doing okay. And I think especially over COVID, like, this was so important because I think a lot of people's mental health really got impacted. Everyone was really isolated for a long time, and a lot of people haven't gone back to offices yet. Some businesses now I'm starting to see a bit more of a transition towards hybrid rather than fully remote. But there are a whole bunch of fully remote roles out there as well. Like, I'm fully remote, and my team are all in office more or less in the US. So I think just regular check-ins, making sure people are doing okay. If you can do face-to-face meetups regularly, I'm very fortunate in that I get to go to the States maybe once or twice a year just to see people. I've got my holiday party at the start of January, so just super lovely of them to invite me out there and stuff like that. that obviously does help actually having that connection. When I was working at Absolute, we used to do like monthly in-person meetings with the whole team just to make sure everyone's doing okay, any big challenges they're facing. We'd have like morning meetings and just like 10, 20-minute check-ins. I think one-to-ones are really important. And again, this is something that I never really did at the agency, but have started to do in this in-house role. And I find that super valuable, whether they last an hour, whether they last 10 minutes, like it's still just giving people that space and that time to really just chat. And I think as well, like just having just time to not just work. And I think that's a really important thing. Like there is time to have fun. And I know at the office, the guys do this really well. Like they have like the food truck that comes on a Friday and stuff like that. Obviously, I'm not involved in that. I really wish I could get like a burrito sent to me every Friday, but it's a little bit far coming from Philly.
We Philly see it.
Oh,
I know, that would be so good, right? But yeah, just like any kind of interactive activity. When I was with Absolute, we would do like we'd used to do some really fun stuff. There was like an I'm a Celebrity type like game thing that we spent like half an afternoon doing. We'd have like a cocktail making class all virtually. There was like really just fun activities like that. So just carving out some of that time as well, I think is quite important for motivation.
Completely agree. Thanks for that.
Excellent. And then Sophie, I know, well, definitely in your last role, you were sort of had a lot of internal promotions, and then obviously moving to RushOrderTees. Is there any piece of advice you would give somebody to sort of incorporate in their first 90 days of moving into a management position, whether that's them already coming from a management position or moving up from maybe like a senior exec level?
Yeah, I guess my biggest bit of advice really would be just get to know the people first. Get to know what makes them tick, how they like to work, what they specifically don't like, because that way you can really make sure that you're tailoring your management style around that. Your team shouldn't have to like mold themselves around your management style. Your management style should mold around the team and what works best for them. That is the only way you're going to get the most out of anyone. Obviously, there's going to be people who potentially are stuck in their ways about certain things that you do need to evolve and you do need to change, and that is an ongoing process. But the first 90 days really should just be carving out how things work, what do people like, what don't they like, what makes them tick, what motivates them, what really demotivates them. And then you can really just adapt different things like your whole management style and just generally processes and how the team works and how things actually get done around all of that. If you've got a happy team, then generally you're going to have happy clients, or you're going to have really good work being done because they're going to be much more motivated to do it. So just work out who they are, what they like, what they don't like, and then evolve around that.
Perfect.
Speaking on people being stuck in their ways or teams being stuck in their ways, has there been a point within, I guess, maybe the past year where you and the team have had to sort of been placed into a situation where you've been forced to adapt? And I can obviously off the top of my head think of the AI situation early on in the year, but there's been many more throughout the year. And how has that influenced you guys and the team dynamic, and how did you sort of overcome it?
Yeah, I think with anything in SEO, like you said with AI, I think with all of the core, like broad core algorithm updates that happen regularly, the last couple of years has just been insane with the amount of things and fluctuations that Google's been throwing at us and all these kind of things. Like you have to naturally be able to adapt to survive in this industry, I think. Otherwise, you're really just going to end up getting left behind and your results aren't going to come. So I think that's just an important skill to have overall and for teams to have and to be aware of. But generally in terms of like how to adapt with these changes, I mean, just being kind of knowledgeable about them, seeing what's kind of coming up, just really understanding like the whole team's perspective on different things, having that open communication. I think that's really important. In terms of like actual experiences, I think the AI side of things is a really big one, especially with the search generative experience coming in. Having to completely like adapt and change a strategy and getting people on board with the AI tools and things like that, that's always difficult. But now we're starting to use a lot more AI internally. We're starting to generally see like the benefits of that rather than just, oh crap, like we need to change and this isn't going to work anymore. And oh no, like we need to focus on product pages and not category pages anymore because we're e-commerce and SGU shows this, but we don't actually know what's going to happen. So taking a step back, just being like, okay, like chill the fuck out, like calm down. It's okay, like it changes, it's fine. And then just getting clued up on it, and just doing tests, just seeing what works, seeing what doesn't. Again, we're not saving lives in SEO. Obviously the clients, it might be a little bit different, like that is the monthly budget, and like they want to see results, and that is incredibly important. Like we should always be striving for the best results for clients and the best results for the teams that we're working with and the companies that we're working with, but there's no harm in testing things and just being adaptable at all times.
Do you, sorry, just to build off of that question, do you think that you make use of a lot of networking events to stay up to date with the team as well, or do you guys just have sort of a habit built into the team to try out and constantly test new things? How do you sort of ensure staying up to date on top of things?
Yeah, so I've always encouraged like reading resources and sharing resources as much as possible. Like I'm obsessed with Twitter and just like following as many people as possible, and just like you see stuff a lot quicker, and you see a lot of more case studies, and you see a lot of like back and forth arguments a lot of the time about different elements because everyone's got a different opinion, which is obviously like a good thing for me, and I really enjoy looking at that, but it doesn't work for everyone. Not everyone wants to spend evenings, afternoons, whatever that is, like looking at SEO stuff. They're not as obsessed with it as maybe what I am, which is like fine, everyone's got a life, right? But what people need, like I find events are really good, and I find particularly for juniors, kind of to mid-level, and I guess seniors to a degree as well, like events like Brighton SEO, just kind of any kind of SEO networking event, you do tend to pick stuff up. I think when you get to a certain level of kind of seniority, or you've been in the industry for a long period of time and you've seen a lot of stuff, you sometimes find that some of these conferences don't have topics that necessarily give you something new, and you do not kind of need to branch out a little bit more than some of the mainstream ones. And that's where really building up connections with people in the industry as a whole can help, because you can have one-to-one conversations with people all across the world. And that's the best thing about like the web and what we do is I could talk to someone who's in Australia, I could talk to someone who's in America. It doesn't matter where anyone is in the world, you can get in contact with them. So just generally networking, chatting to people. I was at Take It Offline in Sofia in early November, and that was brilliant because we were talking not just about like digital PR or like standard stuff that kind of happens in the industry. We had there were two honest AMAs, so Ask Me Anything, like questions, panels kind of thing. There was a black hat one, and there was one that was just like a standard AMA, and it was people from the audience just asking like the most rogue questions that they would probably never feel comfortable about ever asking at like a standard kind of conference. So being able to have those open, honest discussions without any judgment, without any kind of like you're doing it wrong. Like there is no right or wrong really, unless you're really doing something wrong. In what we do, it is testing, isn't it? So yeah, just that whole networking, events, things like that, they are so useful. But just reading what we can kind of get access to online.
Perfect, Sophie. Whilst you're on the topic of networking, I've got a question about internal networking to say. How would you effectively communicate with other departments within RushOrderTees? You know, whether it's just paid marketing or whatever. Obviously, you know the departments. How do you effectively communicate with each other to ensure you're all moving forward and it's not trying to battle of the growth or the figures? It's more so we all have an overall goal. We all want to achieve this for the company. How do you effectively communicate and network within RushOrderTees?
So this is something I'm really passionate about, and it's something I was really pushing at Absolute. It's something I've really been pushing since I've joined RushOrderTees as well. I am a huge fan of integrated strategies. I could do everything possible from an SEO perspective, but if I'm not in line with what the email marketing messaging is, what the paid media is, what social media pushing out there, what our branding and PR teams are doing, if all of those things aren't aligned, like we're all going to struggle. Like everything needs to be moving in the right direction to the final end goal, and that end goal needs to be agreed by everyone. Now, every department's going to have their own internal KPIs. Everyone's going to have like their own things that they're going to want to push, or they're going to want to focus on, or more budget or more time is going to go on to certain things for different reasons. But just making sure that like you can actively just ask people questions and just not have barriers and not have gatekeepers is just really important. We're in the process of setting up like more project management tools and things like that to get a bit more visibility, not just like for me to look at what other people are doing, but for Director of e-commerce to oversee everything a lot easier, because while they're in the office, I'm not. So it's really interesting to kind of have to communicate more. And it's something I say quite a lot is I tend to over communicate just because I work remotely, and I will always send an essay message as opposed to something that's just like a couple of lines long, just to make sure I'm being clear. And that's something I try and really encourage, like particularly coming back to me as well, because I'm not there for the cool like water cooler chats. I'm not there to quickly like yell across the office about something that's happened, because a lot of the time I won't have any idea. So I'm constantly just like dropping in, just like, hey, what's going on with this? Like, oh, have you run any extra paid campaigns this month? Because I've seen X, Y, and Z happen from an SEO perspective, or just going out there asking those questions. And just, yeah, I think that's something that people forget is while you're just an SEO manager or you're just working on this particular campaign or this particular client, find out what other people are doing and how that could potentially impact you as well, because the integrated strategy is always, always, always going to be a better one.
Perfect, Sophie. Thanks. Not about rounds up the webinar. Got half an hour fluent. But
No, it's
yeah,
fast.
it did. But there's a lot of golden nuggets there, and we'll be looking forward to putting out a few clips next week of what we've learned and for everyone to take away from that. But we just want to thank you again for taking your time out on the Friday to come and speak to us, and it was brilliant. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun. Next one we'll have to book in an hour because I talk too much. But it's been great. It's been great.
Perfect, Sophie. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, guys.